two drone experts here today talking about the drone industry. Hey, I'm Harrison Knoll. I'm the CEO and founder of ROCK Robotic, and I'm also the host of the YouTube channel Indiana Drones.
Hi, I'm Nick Boone. I'm the president of operations with FlyGuys. I'm here to talk about LiDAR and the drone industry.
Let's get down to it. Hey, Nick, so how'd you get in the drone industry? How'd this even happen?
Kind of on accident, if I'm being honest. My roommate has flown drones for, or my old roommate, I should say, has flown drones for about 9 years. So kind of when they first came out. I was getting my master's in college, and FlyGuys came in and did a pitch, and they were looking for help. So as part of my capstone course in the master's program, I actually did a full breakdown of what they should do marketing-wise from an SEO perspective and gave them a booklet. And then as soon as I graduated, they kind of offered me a position. And so I bounced around for the past, several years with the company, worked my way into operations, eventually VP of operations, and then president of operations. So I've been heavily involved in drones for the past 3.5 years, have managed thousands of missions across the country. And so we get to play with all kinds of things, from your little basic Mavic Minis all the way up to your Wingtras and your DJI 300s.
That's awesome. Wait, so you got into it from the kind of the marketing perspectives. That means you're honestly the marketing stuff. You kind of learn everything in the industry, what's going on. You're hearing everything and trying to, especially years ago when this industry was so nascent. I mean, how do you feel like this has changed? Just a couple of years ago to today in this drone industry.
Yeah, I mean, and I feel like there obviously has been a change, but even the change that we've seen where 3 years ago you'd say, hey, drones, and people would be like, yeah, it could work, I guess. So now you say drones and they're like, yeah, we've seen it done. We're playing with the idea of maybe doing it. Even that, I feel like we're in that early stage of inception,
Couldn't agree more. Yeah.
Adopted yet.
I feel like, just for me, honestly, our first real paying LiDAR job was just a couple of years ago. Other than, LiDAR work being it was always an R&D budget. Someone wanted to experiment with it, try something. It's an R&D, a proof of concept kind of thing.
We're still getting, that's a lot of the stuff we get. It's let's do this job for the first time, see if there's an added value to what we traditionally do. And that's still probably a large percentage, 30-40% of the jobs we do is just initial concept for people.
Exactly, which is wild, just seeing it going from 100% down to this 30%, because what we're seeing on our side, we're seeing people actually, it's hitting the in production, right? It's being used in the field professionally, drones in general, photogrammetry, but also this LiDAR technology is actually it's becoming just a tool, just another tool that you just use. It's not this big kind of a mysterious thing that you want to kind of experiment with. But I think it was it must be 2 or 3 years ago now when I got my first real repeat client who was just doing LiDAR all the time, because before ROCK, I was a service company for 5 years, and we did a lot of LiDAR services. And
well, so I mean, same question to you. How did you get into the industry?
How did I get into the drone industry? Well, it was 2015, and I started getting into agriculture drones and trying to figure out this crop analytics and doing precision agriculture with drones. And
that was the whole multispectral side of things.
Multispectral, yeah. We actually did hyperspectral, thermal, visible. We built these co-aligned gimbal systems, and we had these 15-foot wingspan drones. We were crazy. We had no idea. We thought this is what everyone was doing. We flew these 15-foot wingspan drones all over the Midwest, and we were just trying to get work and get jobs. But it was at the time, 2015, this is before Part 107. So this is, Part 333 days, getting exemptions. And it was just, I felt like we were like cowboys. The wild, wild west was upon us, and we were just hitting the ground and going. Then fast forward, we got some really large contracts with some utilities. And all of a sudden, we started doing a lot of utility work, and we were building out some computer vision models to do kind of asset management. So for transmission corridors and all these different pieces of the transmission structure. And then this led us into LiDAR. and we saw this LiDAR thing was incredibly useful. And the way of getting the LiDAR data was just very, very difficult. Most times, especially for the utilities, they would order LiDAR and then they would not get it, back for like 6 months. And, we were just like, wait, we can go out this afternoon, get this data, get it back to you tomorrow. Is that fine? And so this kind of spawned this whole journey that evolved into ROCK Robotic. And now ROCK, we're trying to make LiDAR as affordable and easy as possible, both in the hardware and in our software. I think there's just a huge, huge, huge future in this stuff. We're like you were saying, we're just on the tip of this iceberg.
Yeah, we had kind of an independent analysis done by, I forget who, I don't want to misquote, but essentially they talked about how big the drone industry is going to become over the next 10 years. And it's going to be, a multi-billion-dollar industry. And if you look at the bell curve, we're still in the early adopter phase. The majority of people that will be using drones once it becomes a mainstream thing still haven't even started looking at them.
I think this brings up a really good question, is like, where do you think it's going to go from here? Like, what's this? You say we're at this early part of the bell curve. I agree. I think we're also at this early part of this bell curve. But where do you think it's going to go in the next maybe 5 years, and then maybe push it down the horizon 10, 20 years?
Man, it's a hard answer. Obviously my answer is going to be, it's going to be more widespread and more adopted. Like right now, if you talk to a random person on the street about drones are a hobbyist thing that people use to spy on their neighbors, right? And that's all they're good for. Like
I will say, I'm glad that we're beyond this. So in 2015, it was all about, using them and for bombing people. So that was what the nomenclature, that's what the zeitgeist was for drones. It was that. Now it's the spying. So we're moving a little bit, slowly.
And slowly it's going to become more and more accepted. And there's going to be this realization that, like one, satellite imagery exists. I could see your backyard if I wanted to, kind of thing.
Google Street View.
That's not what we're doing. It's going to be adopted. It's going to become a commonplace thing in a lot of industries.
Yeah,
whether that's construction, for progress monitoring. I know they're already doing trials for delivery. I don't think that's 5 years out. I think that's probably on the 10 years outside of things, because there's a lot of stuff you're going to have to get through.
I mean, we can talk about that for a second, because I was flying these large drones, right? And the largest I made a 800 square kilometer orthomosaic map with the drone. It's huge, right? This is massive. And operating, one thing that people just don't get about operating drones is like, these things require maintenance. Like it's not, these delivery drones are there. I mean, it's not the most reliable. I mean, it's reliable technology, yes, if you're there to maintain the equipment. I would say that.
Well, there's that side of things. So that's everything the company could control, right?
Yeah.
Then you have the other side of things, like you've done all of your logistics as the company, like Walmart, and I forget who were teaming up and whatnot. But like, okay, so you've got your delivery routes, you've got your FAA waivers, you can go beyond visual line of sight, you can do all of that. Well, grandma that just ordered for Amazon, like, put a new vegetable garden in her backyard. And where you thought you could land, all of a sudden you can't land. And the first time you miss that and accidentally, land on somebody's chihuahua, like,
so you're bringing up something that's really, I thought about so much. And honestly, with FlyGuys and the drone network that you're building for pilots to be capturing data, a distributed model of being able to capture data over any area that you need it at a kind of a moment's notice. This is really awesome, because I believe the future is going to be a lot more autonomous flight, a lot more the delivery stuff will begin to start happening. No matter what, we're just going to see, we're going to move towards that future. But in that future, you brought up a great point about, things change. And so this notion of, I don't know if you're familiar, but in the autonomous vehicle market, this thing called HD maps. And this is essentially like, a very detailed map of the road, which has everything, the center lines, the lane markings, and signage, turns, everything, speed limits. It's just a detailed, digitized map of the road. And I believe we're going to need the exact same thing for, autonomous flight or BVLOS. It really just doesn't, I don't know why people aren't talking about this more, because in the autonomous vehicle market, you need to have this map, this offline map, because if you think about it, even like when you drive somewhere using Google Maps, you're still going to use a map to get your directions for how to go from A to B.
Right.
But you're going to use your real-time senses to, dodge grandma walking across the road, stop. You do all the real-time stuff, but you still use that map. So I believe it's going to be the same thing with like the future of the drone industry when we're getting more BVLOS. And in order to get there, it does require an army of pilots to go out there and capture data,
We get mapped somewhere first.
everything. Yeah, exactly. So, and repeatedly, it has to always get done. Yeah. Anyway, I think that's a part of the future. When you struck a chord there, because I really believe this.
It's to get a little more specific. We talk about drones. We have photogrammetry, RGB, multispectral, hyperspectral, thermal. What is LiDAR and who needs it?
What is LiDAR? Great question. So LiDAR is different than photogrammetry. It's a remote sensing technology. It's an active laser. I actually have a LiDAR right here in my hand. So it's not actually just a LiDAR. This is a LiDAR mapping system, which is a little different because this sensor right here, this is a LiDAR. This shoots about 240,000 laser pulses out of it every second. And so kind of the whole idea here is that we want to be able to make a 3D model very accurately. So we're going to send these laser pulses and make a distance measurement. And then inside of here, we have a bunch of navigation information that's going to tell us exactly where we're located on the Earth, as well as our orientation of this device. So if we know both where we are and our orientation, we can cast these laser pulses and then project those points onto the Earth in 3 dimensions. And so the beauty here is that it's very accurate, and it can be done, very reliably, repeatably. And with photogrammetry, you're gonna be stitching stuff together. Photogrammetry works great, but sometimes it doesn't always stitch together. Whereas this one's a active sensor. It's going to be directly projecting those points on the ground. Photogrammetry, you're going to take a bunch of photos and stitch them together, and you'll get kind of computer vision errors on this. Both are great technologies. I love them both.
Not to interrupt, but specifically, just a little nuanced answer to that, right? Comparing photogrammetry to LiDAR, you can read so many blogs, so many articles about when to use which one, why to use which one. I think it's safe to say, like, RGB photogrammetry, we do a ton of that at FlyGuys, has its place. It's perfectly acceptable. It's highly accurate when used in the correct setting. But you think about when it works. So, for instance, shadows. If your site's too big, you have to fly all day. You might actually have to turn that into multiple days to fly around solar noon so you can put everything together. If light isn't good, now there's some frame of reference there, like technically overcast days are good because your shadows are more consistent, but obviously you can't fly at night.
Right.
There are a lot of things that could mess up photogrammetry.
But I think just to jump on that really quick. So I started out doing photogrammetry. This is like my bread and butter. And once I went over into LiDAR, the one thing that I just really, really liked about doing LiDAR was that I didn't worry. Like I would go out and fly and capture a site, and I knew if it was logging data, I would have the full site done. And like, it's a very small nuanced thing. But if anyone's out there doing photogrammetry and they come back, if you're using Pix4D and you get the little red dots everywhere because the photos didn't find any matches, you know that feeling where you're like, dang it, like I'm gonna go back out, I'm gonna add some more, I'll figure it out. But like that reliability of having data, although that's not like the primary difference, I feel like as just an operator, that's one big difference for me.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'd say the primary difference, so trees.
Vegetation.
I mean, beauty of this bad boy here is that these laser pulses, they're really small. Like basically it's a laser pointer, really small. And that laser point will go in between the leaves and hit the ground and then come back up and get measured. So they say seeing through the trees, it's not really seeing through, you're just kind of looking through the cracks, but you're able to get reliable data below the canopy. So difficult.
And I go one step further, like that's going to be the answer 99% of people get, right?
Yeah.
the big plus sign for LiDAR is anywhere you're dealing with vegetation. You can do photogrammetry on, a dirt work site pretty easy.
Pretty easy, yep.
You could do LiDAR just as accurate, but where you can't do the photogrammetry is, pre-clearing, where you want to see the ground before the trees are gone. That's going to be 99% of people. I go a step further than that and say any highly complex site, as of, for instance, that roller coaster you did.
That was so much fun, by the way. It was.
How would photogrammetry get in between all that lattice work?
It would not happen. I mean, you could go and take photos around every single beam and then try piecing, but yeah, no, good luck.
Yeah, it'd be a nightmare.
No. Actually, so my rule of thumb is like anytime I'm experiencing objects with 90 degrees in them. So usually if you see like building something like that, and you got even like the top of a building, anytime there's a discontinuity in something, so you got maybe a curb on a road, like photogrammetry will always kind of blobulize this stuff. It's hard to, unless you get a ton of photos of that one specific feature, it just doesn't come out.
And it takes forever to do, and then it's got to be done perfect. But your model's essentially creating that surface, and then your triangulation is kind of building, like you said, that little ramp up where your 90 degree angles are.
So it's actually a big. We've been seeing a lot of people who are doing like planimetrics with this stuff, and they're doing these curbs, right? That's like a big piece, is like getting the gutter and the curb, and getting the top of curb, back of curb, and pulling those measurements from the LiDAR data. It's been pretty cool seeing people use it for that.
Yeah.
So Nick, I want to talk to you about so FlyGuys and making a distributed drone pilot network. How, why, and what?
Yeah, so kind of everything. That's the short answer. We specialize in aerial data capture. We do some stuff on the ground too. We have a network that we can kind of roll out different use cases. So we've started doing some 3D modeling with like Matterports and stuff. But the bread and butter is a nationwide drone pilot network that is trained to do missions. So our network is, I always lose count of the number. They always have to remind me. I think it's somewhere around 5,600 pilots right now in the US. We're toying with the idea of maybe expanding to, all of Canada. While we have a handful currently, it's only a handful, but we're talking about maybe expanding. But we have about 5,600 pilots in the United States, and we do everything from basic marketing work, so just your images and videos, to progress monitoring, to which is going to be your orthomosaics, just your repeatable weekly, bi-weekly missions, to 3D modeling, to multispectral, thermal, solar panel inspections, to we're working with, ROCK Robotics on building out kind of a scalable solution with LiDAR.
So I'm kind of curious. So you have two target audiences here. So one is the operator network, and the other is the basically the client who needs to get work done.
Yep.
So how do you kind of divide your time between the two major target markets here?
It's kind of an interesting question. We focus mainly on our clients, or that has been our focus. We are actually in the process, and I don't think we've talked to anybody about it. We're actually in the process of kind of building out a pilot success division. Before, we've kind of worked with pilots. We'll work with our new pilots on kind of smaller missions. So we have to make sure we get kind of smaller work in their area so we can vet new pilots and say, okay, let's go do, this little marketing job, which arguably is harder than doing a mapping job, because it's more like, no, I wanted this specific angle at this specific time of day, But we work with people, and we generally, okay, we worked on this. We gave you some of the jargon, like doing dollies and flyovers, and now we're going to work you up to a mapping mission. And so we've kind of cultivated pilots organically. We're playing with the idea of doing a pilot success program where we have a step-by-step teachable guideline of like mission management, to where we can just build pilots without needing the missions in place.
I think that's a really smart idea. Kind of the training, the follow on to our pilots to become better pilots. I know gaining access to reliable information in this industry has kind of historically been a little bit difficult. That's actually why I experienced so much success at with Indiana Drones, this YouTube channel, is that my first video I did a comparison of like two lidars, and I think I was the first person to ever do that.
Yep.
Like it was honestly, so coming back into where before pre-ROCK, I did a lot of work with several other lidar manufacturers, and it was always a big no. Don't talk about our hardware in comparison to other people, or don't do this, don't do that. And it just made me feel very, very dirty, I guess, or wrong.
I had the same word rolling around in my head.
Yeah, it's because it made me feel like my allegiance wasn't to the pilot. My allegiance wasn't to the customer. Like my allegiance was like to this business tricking people into buying something. So creating this information asymmetry, so they didn't know, so they would buy and then know. And then I don't know. I just coming from like more the tech world and open source community. I think it's more knowledge, more education, reliable information is the most important thing, and it's the only thing that's going to help our industry grow. So I really commend you on this. Just I think you guys should pursue this for the pilots kind of becoming, and you can monetize it. I'm sure people will pay money to go through training and learn stuff and have recurring training. I think that would be good as well.
Yeah, I think that's kind of in the works for us. To piggyback off of what you were saying though, like you're talking about, like we're in this industry where people, I don't want to say want to hoard information, but they want to make things seem extremely complicated. But that puts out this misinformation essentially. For instance, and I mean, we may decide to cut this, but I'm just going to say, for instance, like the sensor y'all used recently, we had a conversation with the client. I think it's like the LiVox Avia is the sensor on the R2A.
Yep.
They essentially like just said, well, we're never going to use the LiVox Avia because it's not accurate. And we had to like do a full timeout, like, hold on. Why? And they said, well, we use the LiVox Avia on this system and blah, blah, blah. And we got numbers like X, Y, and Z. And it's like, well, it's not just the sensor. Like you have your sensor and then you have your IMU and then you have all your controls. And it's like, I can show you a data set that compares sensor A to a LiVox Avia sensor with a better IMU, and it comes in tighter than you're asking.
Yeah.
It's like all this misinformation of, well, for instance, what's on the DJI L1?
It's also an Avia. Yep.
And people go, oh, the DJI L1, it's a LiVox Avia, and the information doesn't come out great. Well, I mean, there's a lot of things involved in that.
Exactly, a lot. So yeah, I think just the misinformation, or maybe that's not misinformation. It's on, the onus is on us to get good information out there. Like and it's cool hearing you say this, because I definitely, being in this industry for a long time, a lot of people don't want you to do that, and I think it's disruptive. It's just disruptive, and to be a disruptor, I know some people don't like this, but every day I go back and I say to my team and myself, I say, who are we responsible to? And to me, I feel my only responsibility is to these customers, to people who are trying to make money with drones, people who want to get in this industry like I have been in for so many years and experience so much success. And so, and I feel like FlyGuys and your guys' mission is also trying to give these pilots opportunity. So this is a big piece of it, is creating opportunity for pilots or people that want to become a professional in this industry. Well, with the FlyGuys network, you can become successul. Exactly. So I think this is I feel like there's a lot of synergy between what we're trying to do, what you're trying to do, and it's pretty nice. Hey Nick, what's the coolest thing you've seen or done with a drone?
Okay, so honestly, the coolest project I've seen with LiDAR is probably the video of the roller coaster.
Sweet.
If I'm being honest. The coolest project that we've done in-house at FlyGuys let's say with LiDAR specifically, we do some interesting stuff with cell towers, like the 3D modeling is mind blowing when you do it the right way with RGB, but it's very, very, very time consuming and the process is stretching. Coolest thing we've done, we did a project in New York that was several hundred acres, and the guy essentially, it's all forested. The guy wanted to see these 3-foot tall walls that were 200 years old and were covered in vegetation, and wanted to see kind of where all of those were on the property to figure out where he should be building. Doesn't sound that cool, but when you think of how long that would have taken, like traditional surveyors, like that would have been a month with 4 teams, and they probably would have missed stuff. You know, we did it in 3 days.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
After we filtered out all the vegetation and came up with the right ground classification algorithms, we generated, you know, these elevation models where you could clearly see like 47 or something different walls.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
We are in the process of doing some 3D modeling stuff. So we're in the process of trying to do some stuff for stadiums that I think is going to be really cool.
Oh, definitely.
But we haven't done it yet. How about you?
The coolest thing that I've flown or done with LiDAR and drones. Well, I've done a few things. One that comes to mind. So I went down to Ecuador, and I was in the Amazon, like the rainforest, and we had to find some buried. I don't know if there's too much I can really say about exactly what we were doing.
Yep.
There's some stuff still going on, but needless to say, we were in the rainforest, and there was some environmental disasters that happened a long time ago, and we were trying to, find these on the floor underneath in the rainforest. And we went out there. I remember the first day we flew, and it was thick. I mean, it was like double canopy, like ivy. It was like, I don't know if this is gonna really work here. We're pushing the limits. And got back, and I processed the data, and I was just looking at the raw data. I was like, this isn't gonna work too well. I was pretty nervous. But then we got back the DEM and the contours, the surface model, and it was like clear as day. We saw these structures, and there was a lot of them. And we were out there flying for like 10 days straight, every day. And we just found more and more and more. And now this is like, it's become very impactful for the local economy there, what we're finding. And can't really say too much about the client or what it was. But for me, to say more about it, it was very impactful for me to kind of be down there and see this technology help someone.
Yeah, so I think most people's first introduction to LiDAR is watching, the Discovery Channel, and we found this lost civilization.
Mayan ruins.
Essentially, you were in the rainforest, flying LiDAR, finding lost civilizations. Yeah. How did you come up with the concept of Indiana drone?
Well, Nick, I think you hit it right there. That's the concept of Indiana drones right there. So I've been flying. I was doing these jobs all over the world, similar stuff to this. And I was like, I'm traveling. I'm literally going to like these, the rainforest, or there's one time I was in Papua New Guinea, and we were in this very remote island off the coast of Papua New Guinea. And we were literally surrounded by people with machetes, like tribesmen. It was like, this is terrifying. But at the same time, so Indiana drones is kind of a play on words, and we wanted to make something fun, but at the same time to deliver good information. That was always my background is I'm an experimental physicist by training, and I actually taught university physics for a while. And I hosted a science news radio show for several years, and really enjoy this just delivering of information. And to be honest, Indiana drones is still my favorite part of my work. When I get to make a video and, I see the reaction of people who are watching this and learning something new for the first time in such a kind of niche industry, but now it's growing so fast. It's been just awesome. So yeah, Indiana drones started from, I think one day I was going for a run, and I just went, Indiana drones. And called up all my friends, and I said, hey, let's, what do you think if I do this? And they're all like, just do it, man. Just do it.
And I mean, I will say, like, you've been in this world of LiDAR, of drones, longer than I have. A lot of what I have done has been, self-taught, but trying to find stuff online to help with the self-teaching,
Mhm.
and there's a lot out there. There's a lot out there for drones in general. There's a lot out there for kind of photogrammetry and best practices. Then when you jump into the world of LiDAR, there's still a lot out there, but a lot of it's not informational. Like there's
Mhm.
a lot out there about, this is why it's good, or there's plenty of boring, lecture hall kind of science-y, jargony stuff. There's plenty of boring, here's a 2-hour video on how to set up a flight plan, but there's a lot less on the foundational, fundamental theory of what LiDAR is, how it works, why it works. And
Yeah.
I stumbled across Indiana drones before you and I had ever talked to each other. And they were some of the most concise, but ultimately informational and interesting videos to watch that are out there currently.
Awesome. I appreciate you saying that, Nick. It means a lot to me. Yeah, and I'll jump on the kind of the back of that because you're saying this all this other content that's very this here we are kind of in. So let's just talk about the future of the LiDAR industry for a second. I think the future of the LiDAR industry, we're at this kind of changing point where everything before now I'll call like LiDAR 1.0, and we're entering this LiDAR 2.0 stage. So kind of defining characteristics of LiDAR 1.0, it was very, very complicated workflows, very difficult hardware, very almost ad hoc. You would see things that were just kind of bolted together.
Yep.
And this was a very difficult time where the people that like to tinker in their garage would get into LiDAR and they'd figure it out. Now we're in this LiDAR 2.0, where now it's becoming something that I say this all the time because this defining characteristic I think crosses into 2.0, and that's before I used to have to plan to do LiDAR tomorrow. And what I mean by this is like I had to prepare all of my laptops, I had to get all of my extra spare parts, my truck loaded up, I had like a trailer, I had a lot of stuff and it was a lot of preparing. But now in 2.0 world, we're getting to a point where LiDAR can just be in your back seat. And I think that distinction right there carries a lot with it. So when you do photogrammetry, like the Phantom 4 RTK, you just throw that in the back of the truck. It's just sitting there. And if you need to fly a drone, you fly a drone.
Yep.
You don't have to, like, oh, tomorrow I'm going to fly the Phantom 4. Let me get everything ready today. Like, you don't do that. So in LiDAR 2.0, LiDAR is also coming to that level where it's just a tool that's there.
Yeah.
It's not this whole complicated thing. And I think what we've done at ROCK is we've made it that. And also DJI with the L1. I think these are two systems that kind of exist in this 2.0 space, but I believe everything's going to be in that space, soon and even further.
Yeah, I think I couldn't agree more. I actually like the way you're referring to it as, LiDAR 1.0 and LiDAR 2.0. To take that a step further and explain the drone industry, right? So back when the drone industry was drone 1.0, you were building 15-foot drones to fly with. There was a handful of people doing it. For a while, you needed a pilot's license. Drones in drone 2.0 stage, where it's almost, let's pick it up, let's learn how to do it, let's go fly it. Obviously, there are nuances, but anybody now can pick up a drone. They can download mission management software. They can build a flight plan. They can do an automatic flight. Drone 2.0. LiDAR 1.0 was surveyors and engineers. You need to know like all these, whatever they were, star plot maps and what isthmus you're in. And like you have to do lever arm measurements and you got to do your foresight calibrations. And that's
right.
To get up and fly, right? To make sure you're getting the right information.
Right.
What you've managed to do is initiate LiDAR 2.0. And you can read through comments online and stuff about people saying, well, no, you're not doing, lever arm measurements. And what about your foresight calibrations? And don't make it look easier than it is. Like, I'm not going to say LiDAR's easy. But what you managed to do is initiate LiDAR 2.0, where you've taken a lot of, before I used to have to worry about all the nuances of flying the mission. Now I can worry about all the nuances of processing the data. I no longer have to worry about the mission. You've taken the guesswork out of that and said, hey, we can teach anybody how to fly.
Well, and then the ROCK Cloud makes everything on the processing side just very easy as well. So now you can just simply upload your data and then get a deliverable delivered for you. I mean, that's the processing side was a very complicated story for me. And LiDAR 1.0, it just took me, sometimes it would take me days. It took me how big the site was, you know. So in the ROCK Cloud, we made this platform where you can kind of host your data, you can share it. That's very new. Like I think people don't understand, like whenever it came to like sharing deliverables, like it just, you didn't do it because you just give them the like a DEM or something. They'd never really see the LiDAR data, but just being able to share the data and then order things. Like I just need planimetrics. I need, you know, contours or a accuracy report, and having these things kind of on tap in an easy, accessible place on the ROCK Cloud has been, you know, this is really, you know, where our big momentum's at right now. We're going to be adding some cool stuff. So we actually just released orthomosaics yesterday. So yeah, so now you can actually, so we're not computing the orthomosaic, but we are providing line work. So doing planimetrics on orthomosaics, as well as doing a lot of processing on them as well. So that's now hosted right there with your LiDAR data.
Let's do a quick step back. Obviously, we're big fans of the R2A. We've started using them. We're happy with the data sets. We do our accuracy reports. Kind of as I mentioned, we still do a lot of our data processing in-house. I'm familiar with the ROCK Cloud, but this is probably a good opportunity to, like, I know it's there. I know it exists. I know there's a value. What are all the things the ROCK Cloud can give people that don't have experience with processing the data?
Yeah, Nick, this is a great question about the ROCK Cloud. So, and you're a perfect person who, because you process your own data, right? Like you're pretty good at processing LiDAR data. And, you know, I'd say, honestly, you don't have to do all the QC QA that you do when you, so, okay, you're on desktop software. The workflow usually looks like this. You get your data, and then you're going to reproject your data into some coordinate system. And then you're going to start applying a classification schema. So maybe you do get rid of some high noise points and some low noise points. Maybe then you do the ground class, and that's like your first iteration of ground class. And then you're going to go and maybe try classifying the buildings, because some buildings got in there and you're just too lazy to do it manually. So like do a little pass of that. And then you're going to try, you know, cleaning it up a little bit, maybe do some low veg, medium veg, high veg. But then you're going to go into your manual stage where you're just like clicking, you know, and you'll spend quite a while just to clean up this data set. And so then from that, you just are getting this ground classified data set. And then you're going to use that data set to generate either like a 10 surface or like a DEM, and then contours. But then in this 10 surface stage and the ground class stage, you kind of go back and forth a few times. You know, you're going to look at your 10, you're going to see some misclass stuff, you go back to the clean it up and then reproduce a 10. And this is like the iteration process of cleaning up your data and doing this processing. Now, the ROCK Cloud, it just automates all of that. And it's very affordable. So it's just $2 an acre. So if you compare the time it takes you, and the way we came up with this pricing is like, I processed LiDAR data for so many years. And I said, what is a third of what my time cost whenever I was doing this for a customer? And that was where the price came. And so we just wanted to make it very affordable to also get these deliverables done. But other than that, just being able to get, so like contour generation isn't necessarily straightforward.
Right, and I would say everything you've described so far, I would consider the basic deliverable. That's
the basic, yep.
Everything you just talked about, that's the basic deliverable. So that's everything that goes into just, you paid for LiDAR, here's something you can do with it.
It's something, yeah.
On top of all of that, everything else.
Yeah, on top of that, the ROCK Cloud, just merging data sets. So this is also a pain in the ass, doing on desktop. So say you have like 10 flights or even just 2 flights, and you move the base station around. There could be some vertical adjustments you have to make. So in the ROCK Cloud, you can do all that in real time. You just go click, 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 and sync things up, and you click merge. That's huge. Like doing that on desktop software, just usually, I mean, you can do it, and I did it for so many years, but you'll move the data set, you click, apply, it actually recomputes the whole LES that's moved, and then you'll start looking at it again, you'll do it again. And so basically at the end of the day, you'll start out with like maybe like a 10, 20 gig project. And by the time you're done with this processing, you might end up with like a few hundred gigs of just like duplicate data, because every time you apply something, it's always like,
yep, it's a whole new file.
Whole new file. So I don't know why it does that. Almost all softwares do this. It's annoying.
Our workflow for stuff like that is when I have two data sets that overlap, but I need to come together, right? In the field, we plan accordingly. But that means each data set has its own ground control and its own target separate that I QA, QC independently. Then I can eventually merge them together. Like the ROCK Cloud, you fix all of that. You can, because I watched, I think your corridor alignment with your T&D lines, where you're just making changes on the fly and you just slowly bring it into position and then you're done.
Yeah, totally. And people, I mean, honestly, I got some serious haters in that video too. Like, you can't do that. I was like, what do you think you're doing in photogrammetry whenever you have an aerial target and you click that point and say, that's that point?
And then once all that's done, you run your QA, QC, you make sure your control report's tight, and then everything's accurate.
Totally. Yeah, I'd say that, and just basic sharing. I think sharing does not get enough credit. And then, just having a portal that you can deliver your results to people.
Yeah.
And these two things are just, they seem like they're very simple things, but there's really not a good way of doing it otherwise. So, we offer this business plan where you can do custom branding. And so when you share it, it actually represents your business. So, I think, we're actually going to be going further down that road. We want to really produce an environment that represents you and your business. So that way, whenever you're sharing, it's not just all rock. This is cool. We get it. We understand. I'm not, oblivious to this fact. And I also, coming from being a service provider myself, I know how important it is to show my work to people and like be like, this is FlyGuys. This is our deliverable.
Yeah, you essentially, there's a term for that. You're essentially white labeling your software and allowing people to use their own logos as here, this came from, and for us, obviously it's FlyGuys, but it could be anything,
Yeah.
Louisiana Aerial LLC, like whatever it may be, you're essentially white labeling and let them put a face on your platform.
Which I think, just coming from a business owner who ran a business doing this stuff, that's just really important. It's important to me. Was important to me. Still is important to me. So, but yeah, there's so much more, Nick. I think we just talked a ton about the drone industry. We talked a lot about LiDAR, talked a lot about FlyGuys and this expanding network. I think, honestly, so you guys just raised $4 million to go after this.
Yeah.
And
this is our Series A, which is super exciting.
That's super exciting, man. Are you, what's kind of the big goal with the Series A? I know usually you have to have a use of funds. Like what's the big?
You come up with all your run rates and schedules, and it comes with, board approval, and you got all these T's to cross and I's to dot. Honestly, I try to lower my head and just stay in operations and work on workflows. I know I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about it, but obviously our marketing is up and running. We're trying to reach more people. We're trying to educate. We're hopefully coming up with that whole pilot outfit where we can begin, pilot outreach and training and all of that. So I know there's a few initiatives on the docket. I don't know what I'm supposed to talk about yet, but for me, I'm trying to stay in operations with my head down to keep, building better processes and generating tighter data.
Absolutely.
Do you want to talk about exciting stuff that's happening with ROCK? Because a little birdie told me that y'all might be going global soon.
Yeah. So, this is it. ROCK is trying to expand very aggressively. We have product market fit. So, okay, everyone watching, I feel pretty comfortable talking about this stuff because I'm an entrepreneur. I love startup culture. I love drones and all the technology that we produce, but also just creating something in a marketplace is a very exciting thing for me. I just really enjoy it. And so ROCK right now is pretty much, we're very motivatedly expanding the ROCK world into other countries through distributors, partners in other countries. So if anyone is trying to become a distributor, always hit us up. You can always buy a LiDAR system from FlyGuys. They also are providing this equipment. And, I think the aggressive expansion of what we have. So in the nomenclature of, a startup's journey, right? So we have this product market fit. So right now the market has responded to us very positively. They love our hardware, love our software, and we've been iterating on this. And the company is actually started by me and my brother, Alex. And so Alex and I, we talk about this all the time. And so now we're like, we feel really good about this, and we want to take this technology and move it to the rest of the world. And kind of the reason that we are doing it now and not before is that, we really wanted to get this workflow down of, someone brand new to LiDAR coming in, getting a system from us, getting onboarded and trained, and then getting them flying and capturing good data. But then on the back end, having support and being able to maintain this whole pipeline from I've never done this to now I'm making money and I'm successful. And so we've iterated that hundreds of times now, and we feel really good about this business model and the product market fit. So now we want to take this business model and product market fit and just duplicate it into another country, and kind of just expand. And I think as we're doing this, I know FlyGuys is also going to be doing an expansion, and I think there's a lot of opportunity, the synergies together.
Yeah, let me just take a moment to shout out your support team. I've worked with a few companies now in LiDAR realm specifically. I've worked with more than that in a photogrammetry realm. There are a few companies that come to mind when I think of quality support, and that would be Drone Deploy. Actually does a pretty good job of getting back to you in a timely fashion. They have the live support ticket. I've been doing LiDAR for a while. Y'all have the best support staff I've ever seen.
Yes.
I don't think I've waited longer than 5 minutes to get at least a response from somebody saying, hey, we're actively looking at this. We're going to figure it out. We'll have an answer for you as soon as possible. And then, I don't think I've waited longer than 20 minutes to have an answer.
Honestly, Nick, everyone told me we can't do it. So when I talked to all my other friends in the drone industry, business owners, like, oh, you can't do that. You'll go, you'll lose business. You'll go under, all this stuff. I fundamentally don't believe it. I thank you for saying that, because we talk about support endlessly inside the company. It's always something that every day everyone in the company talks about it. Even our developers are talking about support. It's glad to hear you say that.
All right. Well, appreciate it.
Well, I think we covered most of the questions here on this talk. This has been FlyGuys and ROCK Robotic talking about the drone industry and LiDAR. And hope you guys stay tuned for the next session.
Yeah, perfect.